Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Tom the Superhero, Raging Demon, Mass Keaton, Lucas from Game Over Hell, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, the Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Keith Gasper, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Eshevent, Alan Bingham, Mike the Ref from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan, Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Renner Dreaming, Omi, and Makeshift Money. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. Welcome to The Flight, a consumable curation of champions and catastrophes that is considerate of your chronometer. Today we're talking about what is hidden, what cannot be seen, but maybe can be found if you work hard enough. It is our top 5 best hidden boss fights. But before we talk to that, hello everyone, I am Chris Goldpleed and you are listening to the Retro Hangover Flight. And as always, I am joined by the hidden Dick Dragon? Is it a hidden zucchini?
I might just be happy to see you.
Ooh. Shane Seltair.
Hey.
Hi.
Anticlimactic introduction there. Yeah.
Very much so. Very subdued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a hidden greeting.
Yeah, it sneaks right up on you.
It's right there, but it's not. And this topic was brought to you by Wolfman, who suggested it. Tony G, obvious friend of the show because he's a patron. And if you want to recommend and vote on a topic yourself, all you got to do is become a patron, go to our Discord, and go to our top 5 suggestions, nominate a topic. And since we have 500 now, 500 topics in our database, eventually it will be voted on. And maybe yours can win. So thank you, Tony G, for recommended the best hidden boss fights. And Shane, I gotta be honest here. This was a difficult topic because these are usually things I actively avoid. How about yourself?
I don't. I wouldn't even say that I actively avoid them. I just in retrospect, I feel like I just don't play a lot of games that have secret boss encounters. This was difficult to put together because it wasn't like oh man, there are so many to choose from. It was more of of all the ones that everybody seems to always talk about, I definitely have actually played 3 of them. So, yeah. I don't know. I guess it's just the kind of games I play. Maybe I'm not sure.
Someone's going to go on YouTube or Spotify and they're going to be like, can you guys believe that they didn't know about this hidden boss in this one game? And we're going to be over. It's going to be over.
Man, they wield such power, those internet commenters. Yes.
And by the way, I do say that out of love, but also because you'd be surprised what people do say. I always am a little bit surprised. But let's not talk down that road. We need to hide those comments. Like an X and censor our critics. No, let's not do that. But anyway, we're going to talk about our best hidden boss fights. And Shane, how about you kick it off with your number 5?
Number 5.
All right. Well, starting off the list here, I have I think one that probably surprised a lot of people, especially, probably the first time it came around and you were just sitting there, with your buddy, on the couch, just beating up street thugs, trying to save your girl, and you're like, yeah, we're a team. We're kicking ass and taking names. And then you get to the end and you gotta fight your bro. It's Double Dragon. That's what I'm talking about. Double Dragon. I count this as a secret boss because not everybody played co-op, you know? I'm sure there are plenty of people like myself that mostly played single player. So you might not ever have this experience, but man, if you were sitting there with a friend and you got all the way to the end of Double Dragon, you were like, man, we finally beat that guy with his automatic weapon and we got fists. I don't know how that happened, but we sure did it. And then it's like, all right, cool. Well, we're going to Highlander this bad boy because there's only one chick and she's not into polyamory. So one of you got to go down and then you fight each other.
Well, I mean,
bare knuckle.
She might be.
I mean, it's I feel like it's not implied there. I don't know, you know.
I mean, it's between you and your bro aren't. I mean, that'd be a little weird, you know, especially if the tips touch.
It's only if the balls touch. That's it. Otherwise, you're good to go.
Only?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm not judging. I'm not here to kink shame. If that's, I just think it's a little weird overall. I mean, I'm getting distracted. So you're saying Double Dragon's your number 5?
It is, yes.
That could be a new definition of Double Dragon, especially on this show.
The double-ended dragon.
Oh, God. We need 2 eggplants. And anyway, I'm getting away from myself. Okay, my number 5 is most of the bosses in the Upside Down Castle from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And I say they're hidden. I mean, they're not exactly hidden. You just go to the boss rooms, but they're all optional. You don't have to fight them. Big time shout out to the bosses Fake Trevor, Fake Sypha, and Fake Grant, which, for those of you who do not know, were the characters in Castlevania 3. You might be saying to yourself, I watched the Castlevania show with Sypha and Trevor. Those characters are familiar. Who's this Grant fellow? And to you, I say, fuck you. Play the NES game. That came first. Because he is the nasty one. But, I mean, they're all pretty cool. Beelzebub and is awesome. Galamoth is awesome. They're all really interesting boss fights, so long as you don't have like the shield rod combo and the Chrysogrim. But yeah, I think they're really cool. That's the best part of the Upside Down Castle, in my opinion, actually, is those really tough or interesting boss fights that they have within them, because the rest of it's actually rather terrible. Well, not terrible. It's boring. It's just boring and laborious, but yeah, the bosses are a lot of fun. So that's my number 5 for hidden bosses. A lot of the bosses, I'm just combining them. I'm not saying any one specific one, but I guess if I have to pick one boss fight, it'd be Trevor, Sypha, and Grant fight from Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Number 4.
Well, all right. Moving right up to number 4, I went with an expansion to a game that I was not necessarily super huge into, and this was probably around the time where my interest was starting to drop off after many years of hopeless, life-ruining addiction. Not quite that bad, but I'm talking about WoW, World of Warcraft, and the Legion expansion specifically, the boss Engineer Omega Plug. So he, if you aren't aware, is a hidden leper gnome boss that is riding on a big steam armor thing, and he can be summoned in the Tinker's Court in Nomergon after defeating Mechgineer Thermoplug, which is the like canonical final boss of that dungeon. But there's a column towards, I think, like the left or the back of the room, somewhere around there, with a tiny button on the back of the column. And if you can find that little button, when you hover over it, it says push me in all caps. And if you press that, then you get the true final boss in Engineer Omega Plug. And so it was a cool little encounter. And oddly enough, even though, you know, the button is there, but I guess people just assumed like once you defeat Mechgineer, it's just like, oh, okay, well, dungeon's over. Let's portal out of this bitch. It took about 2 months after Legion's release, for basically for Blizzard to like kind of put a sly reference to it in a patch note, and that's what got people to be like, oh, this exists. So like for the first 2 months of the expansion, like nobody even knew that was there.
I hate it when you talk Blizzard games because I don't have any point of reference anymore. It's been so long. All right. So going on to my number 4. This one might be a little low, but or it might even be on your list, perhaps. But you've mentioned this character before, and it is Reptile from Mortal Kombat, the original one. Yes, because this was the Rumor King back in the day. This was the character that you saw that like everyone talked about Reptile. So like all the situations that you had to perfectly perform in terms of knocking people into the pit or so many fatalities or whatever the situations were, they became something that you memorized. Not as much as Abacadabra, of course, but like everyone wanted to fight against Reptile because like that was a point of prestige when you walked onto the playground. You're like, I fought Reptile and I beat him. You're like, oh, because no one really believed it. It was still mythological, but indeed there was Reptile in Mortal Kombat, and it was awesome. And Mortal Kombat was an awesome thing. And yeah, that makes it my number 4.
Number 3.
All right. I like it. Well, I think from here we are moving into the ones that are a little bit more near and dear to me. Not that, WoW wasn't, but like I said, Legion was kind of like not one of my favorite expansions. But my number 3 is going to go to clearly the best Castlevania game of all time, and that is Castlevania 64 / Legacy of Darkness. And that
Obviously.
that is Demon Rene. So if you have not played this game, and I don't know why you haven't, because you are clearly missing out. Your life's not complete. But if you haven't, he is a demon salesman that shows up at Dracula's castle. And, a lot of people have different reasons for going to Drac's castle when it shows up. And his happens to be capitalism. He makes some offhand comment when you meet him for the first time about how, like, even demons in hell need to make money now. He kind of bemoans that state of affairs. And so in order to take up his mercantilism, he scatters these little scrolls around, and you end up finding one, and you sign a contract with him, which probably inadvisable anyway. You're signing a contract with a demon, probably not the best idea, but you do it so that you can buy some honestly pretty useful items from him. It's usually like healing items and status cure things and stuff like that. So you think nothing of it really. However, once you get towards the end of the game, right before the final battle, he shows up again. He just kind of pops in. And one of two things can happen, spoilers. If you spent less than 30,000 gold with him over the course of the game, every time you meet up with him and peruse his wares, he will basically just say like that he is off to find more lucrative ventures, and that he knows about some sort of world event that's going to cost millions of lives. And so he's getting all half chubbed about all the souls that he could possibly take. However, if you spent more than 30,000 gold, he shows up and says, hey, did you read the fine print of this contract? And you're like, no, it's written in demonic. I can't read that. And he's like, oh, that sucks. Well, let me tell you what it says. You spent over this amount, and that means that you owe me your soul. And so then he transforms into his true form as a flying torso of a demon with like a goat head and horns and a big ass spear. And he's a boss fight. And then you have to fight him before you fight Dracula. So it's pretty cool. And there's not, as far as I remember, I don't think there's really anything that specifically says like, hey, don't spend this much gold. There may be a sort of like offhanded hint of just like, hey, be be careful how much you trade with this guy. But I think that's kind of about it. So it comes as a pretty stark surprise when you're like, oh man, I'm at the end of the game. I'm gonna go fight the vamp lord himself, and then this motherfucker in his hat and suit and tie shows up and wants to wreck your whole day.
Is it easy to spend over 30,000 gold in that game?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, considering that like one healing kit or whatever is like 4,000 gold. Yeah.
Oh wow. So it can kind of be, it's more of a fuck you kid.
Kinda, yeah. Like it's not too difficult to spend that much. So I feel like chances are pretty good you're gonna have to end up fighting him.
That's pretty funny. All right, on to mine. We're getting into another classic series. Maybe the game itself isn't so classic, but it is from a series that many fans of old games will know and love, and that game is Mega Man 8, the Sega Saturn version, and only the Sega Saturn version. Unfortunately, Capcom has not rectified this for whatever reason. I don't know, but it is Cutman and Woodman, which are optional bosses that you can fight at specific points in the game's story. The first one is, I think you can fight both of them actually. You can fight them in between. So in Mega Man 8, and I think it started in 7, instead of getting all 8 Robot Masters at once, you only get 4. And then once you make it past those 4, you get like a nice little middle section. That like a stage you have to fight there, and in the Saturn version, Cutman and Woodman are in those stages, and so they play all classic versions of those songs, and you can just go there, and I think you get a giant nut, not that kind of nut, but you get a giant bolt. It's a bolt, bolt, not a nut.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's all you really get, but it's really cool to be able to fight against those classic Robot Masters, especially at the time if you had a Sega Saturn, because they were not in the PlayStation version, which is something that it can hang its hat on. So unfortunately, that means no one has really played it, and now that game's like $300-$400, unless you have other means of playing it. But yeah, that's Mega Man 8. Cutman and Woodman. They even have the original Mega Man 2 songs and everything. It's really fun. I really enjoyed those fights. Everyone should try it out.
Number 2.
Well, we're at the penultimate pick. We're almost there. My number 2, actually, honestly, I mean, my last 2 are going to be completely not surprising whatsoever, but here we go. So, it's almost like people know us at this point and know the things that we like. But, I will say that, I mean, both of these showed up on just about every single, like, top secret bosses list, like, ever. So I'm clearly not the only one. But my number 2 is the Nameless King from Dark Souls 3. So he is found in the Archdragon Peak after ringing the bell by the Great Belfry. And there's a couple of reasons this fight is really cool. One, it's just epic as fuck. Like you end up in this, basically you're walking on fog. It looks like you're walking on almost air, but the whole place is covered in fog. And then this dude riding a big ass dragon just swoops over you, and it's a 2-phased fight, as a lot of Dark Souls bosses are. And the first phase, you basically have to deal with him flying around on this dragon. And at the time, he comes up as King of the Storm, which it's not clear if that's just what we're calling him or if it's the name of the dragon, because technically you're fighting the dragon to start. So it's a little ambiguous, but you defeat that, and then he hops off the dragon, and then you have to face him on foot, and his battle prowess really shows at that point. So the encounter itself is just super cool. The music is appropriately epic. The fight itself is a lot of fun, very challenging. And the other part of it is lore based, of course, because it's a Dark Souls game, but it's very heavily implied, as Dark Souls tends to do, with like item descriptions and, you know, environmental storytelling and things like that, that the Nameless King is quite possibly Gwyn's firstborn, and Gwyn was the boss of the first Dark Souls game. A fearsome dragon-slaying war god. This is the Nameless King that I'm talking about. Founder of the Covenant of Sunlight. From the time of the ancient lords that had his deific status revoked and his name stripped from the annals of history after an unnamed incident. And so that is the sort of heavy implication there. So some really neat sort of lore tie-in with this optional secret boss as well. So pretty well-rounded all around.
My number 2 is Akuma from the original Street Fighter Alpha. So to provide a little bit of context here, as well we normally do, because that's why this is a podcast. I'm actually going to say Akuma and move the fuck on. We've never done that. Maybe I should try that one time. Make like a 10-second flight. But Akuma was a character that a lot of people didn't really have the opportunity to play as, because Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo came out in arcades, and at least for me, with my friend group, the arcade releases were really kind of subdued by the console releases. And there was only one console for a very long time. Well, I say very long, like in modern video game standards, this is like a minute. But for like 4 years, where you could only get Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on one console, and that was the 3DO. And no one owned a 3DO. So the thing about Street Fighter 2 Turbo is it debuted this character named Akuma, or Golki. Depending, you know, everyone knows who this character is now, but it was a new character. He was a badass. He's supposed to be like the demonic influence for Ryu and Ken. And yeah, that's who Akuma was. So when Street Fighter Alpha came out, like there was these rumors of being able to play as Akuma, and I have to go back and see if you can play as Akuma. I know you can in 2. Obviously, he's on the cover. I don't know if you can in 1 with certain codes, but you can fight him. And by extension, you could, I mean, this could probably qualify for Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but I think more people played Alpha, if I'm being honest. And this is where I originally played it, which is why it's on my list. So if you fulfill a certain series of requirements, and I think it has to be on a certain difficulty mode, don't quote me on that, but like it has to be, you have to have so many perfects, or you have to have so many level 3 combo finishers, and you can't lose a round on your way to the final round. And the other one is too, there's a certain button combo you can press to do it at the very first battle. Who wants that? That's not earning it. Earn it. Go out there and earn it. But right before the final battle, you line up with your opponent. It might be the rival battle. I know I'm getting the specifics on this very, very murky. This is all from memory, people. I don't write these notes down. This is why it's fun. Akuma will come in his little teleportation move and beat the crap out of who's ever on the other side of you. And then you will fight Akuma. And if you're not expecting that, Akuma's probably going to whoop your ass, unless you are very, very good, because Akuma's not a fucking pushover at all. Akuma's a very, very tough fight. But it is cool, especially kind of like at that time, because like Alpha and Alpha 2 came out very close together. And so I played the first Alpha first, and I don't really remember like a lot of Akuma hype, but then I played Alpha 2, and then I went back and played Alpha. I'm like, oh, Akuma's in here. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. And it was very strange for me to have that thought, but I thought it was cool, and I loved it because I was a massive Street Fighter nerd back in the day. And you know, Akuma's one of the biggest characters I think ever for the Street Fighter series. He looks a little weird now, but you know, back then in those Alpha times, Akuma was the man. And being able to be good enough in order to get him on your screen to fight him and inevitably get your ass kicked, at least for me. I'm sure some people could beat him. I think it took me a long time in order to do that. That's a very memorable experience for me, and that's why it's my number 2. So it's Akuma from Street Fighter Alpha.
Ah, yes. People sure do love those fighting games.
Well, I mean, a lot of people did back then.
Yeah. I'm sure they do now too. It's just a statement, Chris.
You're right. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
You might be. You might not be.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
Number 1.
Okay, well, my number 1 secret boss is none other than the Cow King himself from Diablo 2.
Shock.
Yeah, I know, right? The background story on this one's pretty fun because there had been this rumor swirling basically since the original Diablo came out that there was a secret level that could be found by clicking on one of the cows that was sort of off to the right-hand side of Tristram, the overworld town that you have in the first game. That was not true. That never actually existed in the first game. It was just something that people started a rumor about. Blizzard, being the cool bros that they were at the time, latched onto this idea when they caught wind of it and basically started teasing the shit out of people about it. Going so far as to include it as a cheat code in StarCraft. So there is a code you type in, there is no cow level. And then eventually including it for realsies in Diablo 2. It was a little bit of a convoluted way to get to it, so it took some time to figure out. But once you got the pieces together, a Tome of Town Portal and Wirt's leg from the old Tristram there. You throw that in the Herodric cube, shake until properly mixed, and then you got yourself a portal to the secret cow level. And that is where you can find the Cow King. And of course, there was one extra thing that I think they either took out in one of the last patches for Diablo 2, or it was something that they changed in Resurrected. It might have been that. Either way, I don't think this happens anymore. But one of the things that people found out the hard way with that was that if you killed the Cow King, then you could never go back into the secret cow level with that character. Yeah. So, and I can't remember if it was everyone that was in the game. So if you were playing like multiplayer on battle.net, or if it was just the person who made the portal, that detail escapes me at this moment because it's been a while. But either way, somebody was definitely getting locked out if you did that. So people were always yelling about it when you were doing cow level runs. They're just like, don't kill him. Don't kill the king, blah, blah, blah. And then of course somebody would always troll them and do it and everybody get pissed. So good times on the internet. The people have always been assholes on the internet. So there you go. Cow King, my number 1.
That is a great pick to finally get the cow level.
That's right.
All right. My number 1 isn't as cool. I think some of you will think it's as cool. People who don't like PC games will probably think that. And it is kolx. Kolx? I don't know. Kolx from Super Mario RPG. So why is kolx cool? Because it has the song from Final Fantasy IV, the boss theme, in the background. Because it's made by Square Soft. Not Square Enix, Square Soft. And has a bunch of crystals around him. Has 4 crystals around him. I think it's 4. And I can't remember the circumstances in order to fight him. And I know he's in the remake. I have not played the remake, so I'd have to take a look at that. But I know that kolx is in the remake as well, and there's some creativeness to it. But it was really cool because here's this boss that's very Final Fantasy inspired, and you're happy-go-lucky, newbie RPG, and it's nice as a Final Fantasy fan to get rewarded for it. Especially it's Final Fantasy IV's theme. They could have picked any other Final Fantasy to do the theme from, and they picked Final Fantasy IV. Why? Because Final Fantasy IV is the best Final Fantasy. That's why. So, yeah, it's kolx from Super Mario RPG, which is also a fun game, even though if it is RPG game for babies. It's a lot of fun, and you should fight kolx. That's all I got. Yeah, that's my number 1. Not much to say there. Just it's a great fight, and I love it.
All right, well, there you have it. There are top picks for secret boss encounters in video games. There are, of course, plenty of other ones. We could have said the slot machine from Star Fox, or, there's some shit from like one of the Metal Gear games, I'm pretty sure that I saw. That there are a ton of options. The point is, though, is that neither one of us have necessarily played those or played those secret bosses. And so, we're not just going to put together some random list of things we found. We want to talk about the things we actually played. So there you have it. So we hope you like that list. I'm sure you have a list of your own. Actually, some of our Discordians, I'm going to go with that, have talked about in the past their own picks for some of these flights. And, we love the conversation. So that functions as a great segue to say that if you would like to join in on that discussion and all the other things going on in our totally free and totally public Discord, you can find that along with all of our other goodies, our Patreon and our merch store and all our socials and all that good stuff at the Linktree. So head on over to Linktree/retrohangover. It's linktr.ee/retro hangover, and that is where you will find it all. And so I don't know, Chris. I think that covers it. You think we're good? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Just go to the Linktree. Just go to one of the streaming sites at 9 p.m. Eastern time. You know the ones. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, beautiful. Well, until the next flight,
play with your, oh no, I can't find it, joysticks.